We have multiplying signs that the politics of the United States today is more and more similar to Weimar Germany, Germany in the 1920s. Starvation in Detroit reported. Go to the Chronicles of the Weimar Republic. One of the authors in some books I'll tell you about in a minute. We're told that a well-known German scholar, Professor Hein of Dresden, died of hunger. A university professor died of hunger in Weimar, Germany, back in 1922. Today in the United States, reports of starvation in Detroit. We'll have more for that on that in the coming weeks' broadcast. Now, let's see. Why would the Secretary of the Treasury be chewing the carpet? Right? If you want to send a get well card to Geithner, you can send him a carpet sample with turn it over and you put a dotted line and it says, please bite along dotted line. Chewing the carpet in the Treasury, expletives, and so forth, the rage of Geithner. What could be going wrong? Well, one very interesting thing. On Monday, my dear friend Franco Macchi sent me some reports about an attempted coup in Saudi Arabia. Allegedly carried out by Prince Bandar. Now, Prince Bandar, we know him well. He's been here in Washington for 10 or 12 years, or was, and he was the Saudi ambassador to the U.S. He was so close to the Bush family, he was known as Bandar Bush. On the evening of 9/11, he was in the White House, spent the whole evening with the Bush family there in the Bush White House, September 2001. Bandar is now back in Saudi Arabia working as the head of the National Security Council. And as soon as I saw this, I said, aha, CIA MI6 agent Bandar attempting to do what Obama has been doing in Iran, that is overthrow the government and put in a more pliable, new-look, left-cover CIA type regime, except, as I was then informed by the same excellent source the following day, it's much more complicated. Bandar has been presiding over a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Russia. Bandar turning to Russia. Bandar meeting with Putin, a direct personal meeting, cordial handshake between Bandar and Putin as they signed an agreement for Saudi-Russian military cooperation, a deal to suppress narcotics trafficking, and all kinds of other measures for cooperation. So it turns out that Putin had gone to Saudi Arabia in January of 2007, and there's been a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Russia going on ever since then under the auspices of Bandar, Prince Bandar, the head of the National Security Council. Bandar is the son of Prince Sultan, who is the crown prince, and you've got King Abdullah. Apparently, he was trying to interfere in the succession. At least that's the story told. We got to check all of that. But reportedly under house arrest. Now, if you look in my book, 9/11 Synthetic Terror, Made in USA, you will find in there that in August of 2001, right before the 9/11 events, you had Saudi Arabia sending a letter to Bush, the younger, saying, we have come to the parting of the ways. We have got to look out after our personal interests, and therefore we cannot have this relation with you that we've had before. That was something that became public in the Wall Street Journal shortly later. So there is a tendency in Saudi Arabia to break out of this protectorate, because that's basically what it's been, that Saudi Arabia is a U.S. protectorate, and maybe they're not happy with that. It doesn't mean that Saudi Arabia is throwing itself into the arms of Russia, but it simply means they want to use Russia to balance this overweening dictatorial hegemony of the U.S. You probably remember back in the Gulf War #1, which I write about in George Bush, the unauthorized biography, the first U.S. troops came into Saudi Arabia before the government even agreed to take them. This was during the Saddam Hussein invasion of Kuwait. So that would be a big thing. I hope you can see that part, right? If Saudi Arabia defects from their puppet status vis-a-vis the U.S., mainly because the Saudi Arabian royal family. They're not happy about what's going on with Israel. They're not happy about the dollar going down. Above all, they're not happy because Obama is undoubtedly planning a color revolution against them. So they look across, right, if you can dump Khomeini, you can dump the Khomeiniac regime in the form of the mullahs, then maybe you're going to dump us. So why don't we hedge our bets and let's have a Russian option, a Russian card. This would be very bad news for the Treasury, very bad news for the Treasury, because you remember the Undersecretary of State for International Affairs is basically the Saudi officer, because they're the people in the world who have a significant amount of dollars, along with the Chinese and others. So maybe this is why Geithner is chewing the carpet. Now, the other thing, of course, is Ahmadinejad has now been inaugurated, and the tendencies that we've been observing in the last couple of weeks continue. While the mullahs argue, the generals in Iran are solidifying their control. The mullahs are split. The ayatollahs are bickering and fighting. The grand ayatollahs of Qom, Montazeri, Rafsanjani are fighting Khatami. And Khatami are fighting Khamenei and Ahmadinejad, of course, a military guy. So we have an interesting article, The Gleaner. The Gleaner is from Jamaica, right? Jamaica in the West Indies. And in The Gleaner of Jamaica, we have an observer called John Rapley. Rapley works at the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, and he says essentially what's going on is that when Khamenei decided to support Ahmadinejad against the People Power coup, Velvet Revolution, organized by the CIA, he had to lean himself on the Pastaran, the Revolutionary Guards, and the security apparatus, meaning that the generals are taking over. And the more the mullahs are split, the more the generals gain power. So the Islamic part of the Islamic Republic is in decline. Also, very, very, very interesting, Iran and Russia are now having a joint naval exercise in the Caspian Sea. This would indicate the pro-Russian characteristics of the Ahmadinejad government, certainly enough to make Washington hysterical, because you'll remember the death to Russia, death to China chant of the Rafsanjani Mousavi CIA faction 3 or 4 weeks ago now. That is the Brzezinski program. That's what Iran is supposed to do. They're supposed to become a kamikaze puppet against Russia and China. They've got to be used as an expendable asset and pawn, a tool of the U.S. and the British, and they're not doing it. So look at Saudi Arabia, look at Iran. Things maybe not going so well for the Anglo-American imperialists. We'll be back in a minute.